Welcome to This Time in History. I'm Matthew, guys, and joining me as always is my better half, my partner in crime, my brand new co-host with the most, and she's amazing tonight, Ebony.
Hello.
We were supposed to have a Ward 21 debate tonight. Unfortunately, that seems to be a recurring theme where we're not doing the debates, but it's okay because we have something that may even be better. We are going to sit down with Ward 21 candidate Kiri Vadivelu. I'm going to butcher that. Why don't you know what? I'm going to let you say the name because I'm just going to butcher it. But this is Kiri, and he's running in Ward 21 for City Council. Welcome to the show, Kiri.
Thank you, Matthew. I think you got it actually. Kiri Vadivelu.
I have a habit of butchering names. It go if you listen all the way back to May. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to say. There's a lot of names that I butcher, so I do apologize for that.
You know what? It's okay if you butcher my name, but please do not butcher my platform, the political platform that I stand on.
I'll do my best, but why don't we start off? I always ask the same three questions to my the people I interview, and they're: why are you running? Why this election? And why now? So go ahead.
Absolutely. Actually, I asked myself, how come I got into politics so late? The reason is, I think you might have seen it. Some of you might have seen it in the news as well. In the beginning of the pandemic, April 2020, going back, I lost my job. I was a union shop steward at my workplace, and I lost my job. Again, it's related to the pandemic. I was fighting for the better working conditions and worker safety and etc. And I really don't want to go too much into that. But as a shop steward, I did my part. In the process, I lost my job. And I then right after that, then my landlord came after me because I've been renting in the same apartment for 10 years. My family has been living here. We never had any problem. And on the same week when I lost the job, I told my landlord, you know what, I lost my job. We are in this pandemic. I don't know how things are going to go. Let's work this out because I'm not going to have money coming in. So I applied for, at the time, EI, because everything was in the air. So nothing was, was not present at the time. So actually, I didn't get that at the time. So anyways, while that was in the air, my house was on the line, and I was attacked by my landlord left and right, and my landlord wanted me to get out of my house, get out of my apartment, because I was one of the oldest tenants and I was paying low rent. My rent was under the rent control system, so I was paying approximately $1,150 a month for 2-bedroom apartment. Whereas the newer folks who were coming into the apartment, into the same building, who were paying nearly $2,000 for the same apartment. So obviously there was a great incentive for the landlord to evict me. So landlord did whatever he can to evict me. And I said to myself, I know I'm fighting a good fight. I know I'm standing on the right side of the history. So I'm going to fight for this. So I took the fight. Landlord refused to agree to a repayment plan. He simply wanted me to leave my apartment. And I took this as a challenge, and I organized my neighbors. I realized nobody's organizing the building. Nobody's talking about evictions in my building. So I was the first one to talk. So I began talking to my neighbors, and we all agreed it's the right thing to do, to fight against illegal evictions at the middle of the pandemic. It shouldn't happen. And that sadly, our police and the municipality was on the wrong side. They were going after the people who were living in the parks, and that again, really a dark side of Toronto, which actually shows the really dark side, inhuman side of Toronto. So I was fighting, and I organized tenants, and I was one of the tenant union leaders in my building, and I'm still now. So we fought along. and some, I mean, quite a few. I mean, most tenants was on the same page for a while at the beginning, but then afterwards, obviously, they were not able to keep up the same fight as I did until the end. So they moved out, or they pretty much agreed to whatever the landlord wanted. So but I did not give up, and me, myself, and few other tenants, we did not give up. We kept the fight on, and we came to the landlord tenant board, and by that time we already got the support of other community members in my community, and that's one of the organizations I was heavily involved around that time was Acon Canada. I'm not sure if much of you heard.
Yeah.
So wonderful people, great community, and they were my support because the I called the counselor Michael Thompson, his office, and their response was very shameful and not even helpful at all. Their response was, unfortunately, your matter is in front of landlord tenant board. There's nothing we could do at this time. That was the dead response I got from Michael Thompson's office, and that really made me take the fight on my own, and that really spiked up. And I never thought about politics in my life. I completed social science, and I was I was going into a different direction. And right now I'm doing IT, but yeah, and I never thought of myself going into politics until this tenant union thing, pulled me into it. So slowly I was getting involved into community work, and that's when I realized there's other organizations who are already doing a lot of fight to protect vulnerable people. So that really opened the eyes for me to get involved in my community, and I got involved with several organizations. One notably, Justice for Workers, and obviously Acon Canada, and another one is Socialist Action, who actually have a socialist way of, the socialist way of solving the community problems. So I was really into that. So I got involved, and that's how I got dragged into the municipal politics. And I was actually asked, why don't I, go into the public office and run for one? I don't know. I never thought about it. I never wanted to, but then I realized there's a real leadership is needed. Unfortunately, a lot of the current status quo leaders, they're sellouts. And when I say sellout, they simply get into the public office, and then they occupy their space, and they pretty much, instead of representing the people, instead of balancing the inequalities and inequities, they pretty much become corporate puppets. I'm just speaking as it is. I really don't want to sugarcoat anything.
I understand completely. Yeah.
So I realized there's a need for real leadership, and there's a need for community representation. And when we look at the Toronto City Council, they're all landlords. There's not a single person is a renter. There's not a single person is actually speaking for tenants. And so how can we have landlords make rules for tenants? How is that? How does it work? So then I see that I'm a renter. I'm still a renter, and I've been in the city for long enough. And I'm going to speak for tenants, and I'm going to speak for the people who have been fighting to stay home in the pandemic. When everybody else, the people in the public office let them down. They're renters, and the people of the working class people, they were let down, and they had to defend themselves. And that's what we've seen. And there's a great uprising in our communities right now. That is something very positive that we need to look at, because for the longest time, politically we were not active. Everybody was up to their own thing, but all of a sudden now people are talking about politics. People are really looking at what's really happening in our community, and young people are paying attention into politics. That little one, yeah. So it is a really good time in history to fight for justice and to defend the interest of the working people. If you look at it,
I love how you almost worked the title of the podcast into what you just said, because we're this time in history. I love that.
thank you.
Yeah, see how you did that. Listen, I love your story, and as a renter myself, and I know I believe Ebony's a renter as well.
Yeah.
We understand. I've lived in some not so good places. One time, I'll tell you a quick story. One time I was renting a basement apartment of a house, and I did something my landlord didn't like. I think I you know what? I can't remember. It wasn't that
Hung a picture, maybe.
I can't remember, but anyway, he cut off because I got my own internet, and he cut it off in the back because he restricted. I wasn't allowed in the backyard, no access. So I jumped the fence and I went to hook it back up, and then he told me to get out, and then an hour later, police show up my house, and he's there going, "Oh, he punched me," and obviously nothing happened because I had roommates and we were all there together. We stuck to our story, but I understand dealing with not so nice landlords. I get it, and the fact that you want to speak for tenants is great. A lot of people don't like Rob Ford, but he spoke for tenants. He went to people's homes. He looked at the conditions. And as someone who grew up in housing, grew up with, problems anywhere from holes in the wall, leaky pipes, rats, mice, roaches. I understand all of that stuff. I wish I didn't, but I do. So I understand that. And it's nice. I keep saying this every interview. We need fresh faces. We need new blood. We need fresh ideas on council. Because I think that the one thing that every candidate can agree on, or else you wouldn't be running, is that the status quo is not working. Am I right?
Absolutely. And that is the biggest complaint most people have, whether what type of political platform you stand on. I come across folks on the right, folks on the left, and folks on the center. But we can all agree the status quo cannot serve any longer, and we have reached to a point that our climate, our social structure is so unsustainable. What are we going to leave for our children? Right now, we are our working people are exploited. They're making $15 an hour, and our inflation has gone up so bad that our wages have not kept up at all. And we are growing our children, our future generation, in poverty. For what? So some corporate CEO can earn $14 million a year. Why that? Let's look at another example here. Banking. If you don't have money, it is more expensive to be poor here than ever before. Because if you have money in your bank account, you can have a free account. But the logic is so reversed that we don't have a banking for people who low-income people. And if you were to look at some history back in Toronto, we had postal banking, and that's a while back. And all the banking industries fought against postal banking because they know that is a direct competition to corporate profit motivation, because postal banking provided banking service to people with low income and everybody who needed a service, and they can have bank. They can have their banking needs met, and that was completely shut down. And it was back in then, a while back. So now the banking is a monopoly, and everything, the way the things are going right now is a corporate monopoly, and that's how people are being exploited. And now if you look at it, the minimum wage, the people who are earning the minimum wage have to pay highest rent, and have to pay whatever the Rogers charge or the Bell charge, because John Tory, who is one of the board members, making over 700K, we don't know what he's doing with that money. But again, this is the problem, is the real conflict of interest. Why do we have public, people who are in the public office directly board members of corporate office, some kind of big corporations? And
I'm just going to jump in. That stuff's not allowed to happen in the States. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about politics in the States, but most recently, when Donald Trump was elected president, he had to put everything that he owned into a trust, and there are strict rules with that. I always thought that we had the same kind of policy in Canada, federally, provincially, and municipally, but it's clear that we don't. And we desperately need that. We can't have a prime minister or a premier or even a mayor making decisions for the public at the same time, literally lining his own pocket with a secondary job. That's unacceptable.
Exactly. And that then who are they serving? And it's sadly, this is other question that I wanted to ask. Why do we have government in the first place? Why cannot we just have no government at all? The reason we have government is to balance the inequalities, to address the needs of the people, because we know we live in a capitalist society anyways. Capitalism is always about making profit, making more, and that goes against the value of social values and principles and humanity. So that's why government needs to be there to balance it and put a full stop from to intervene from exploitation. But unfortunately, that's not how people in the corporate, people in the public office think. They think running like a bank or running like a corporation is efficiency. It's a completely how we can phrase it. It's a completely foolish way of thinking that they would have the same interest as a government that want to serve everybody. So it's just that we are exploited and we are missing. I mean, people are really given misinformation with the intent, with the false intents, and that's what bothers me. And there's a lot of misinformation in our society that we need to really unravel in order to get the real information. So, for example, I'm a socialist candidate, so I stand on a socialist platform. As soon as you say socialism, folks have a false understanding of, socialism means everything is free. Well, it just goes to show that how poorly we are informed about politics. Real socialism is about having a fair economy that works for everybody. That is what socialism is. So right now is a capitalism that is completely against as the human principles, human values. So that's why we need a socialist government to serve the needs of the people, and not only in a municipal level, but in a provincial and federal level. We need a government that has that socialist way of solving problems. Again, going back to the crimes, crime is not a police problem.
Hold on, before we get on to crime, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. So I'm familiar with the socialist platform kind of. I mean, I've had contact with a few other socialist candidates, but what I wanted to ask you is the main points. Like, there may be stuff that you and I disagree on. However, I'm not the type of person that needs, I need to 100% agree with someone. I firmly believe in the power to agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree and still work together. And I'm wondering if that's your philosophy, as well as I had a really good question. I'm just thinking of that now.
You know,
Sorry, go ahead.
yes, I was just going to say, we have two eyes. So as long as you're adding to the content. I mean, as long as you're adding to the subject, I think we cannot do any wrong. So you know what? Disagreement is a growth. It's a challenge, as an opportunity to grow. So yeah, by all means, I like challenges.
And then the other thing is, we don't see this. It's almost across the board right now. And it's not because of the election. It's across the board. Our counselors are not accessible. Hell, I don't even know who the counselor is for Ward 1. We had someone appointed until the election. And before that, I respect the Ford family, but Michael Ford was not available, period. And when I lived in Ward 3, I'm sorry to do this, but Mark Grimes was not available. And that I would assume, and I'd probably be correct, God knows I'm wrong a lot, but this time I think I'm right, that most of the counselors are not available. They're not accessible to the people who elected them there in the first place. And I'm just wondering, as part of your platform, will you make yourself accessible, predicated on you winning the Ward 21 seat?
Absolutely, and that is the key priority, because if you are not listening to the people, if you are not accessible to the people, then how are we going to represent the needs of the people? And that is the key. And I also wanted to touch on briefly on something that's happening right now. Since I started the election campaign, my email inbox has been flooding, and there's compliments, there's support, and there's things that I don't even know about, some random stuff, but I am responding to every email personally, directly.
That's awesome.
I'm taking my time and responding to them. Unfortunately, it's taking longer. Plus, I have my baby is 15 months old.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. It's a fatherhood.
I have 3 kids myself. Boy or girl, if you don't mind me asking?
It's girl.
Girl? Yeah. Wait till they turn 15.
Oh, okay. You know what? I have plenty of time for that. So, yeah, it's life just kept me really busy. Plus, there's a lot of coding. There's a lot of IT stuff that I need to get through. So that keeps my brain really occupied. And in the meantime, I have to look at all these emails and to respond, and then also continue to, be engaged with the community organizations that I'm already involved with. So yeah, like you, I think I really got burned out right at the beginning of the election. So now I'm actually recovering my energy, and I should be launching my website in about a day or two. I mean, in a few days, it should be ready. It would be completely accessible. This is completely done by me, and it's done in Ontario. So it's a different structure. It's a jam-tag structure that we call it. It's a modern architecture, and this is going to be something that we wanted to. I mean, I wanted to showcase. I mean, if councillors are coming and getting elected and representing the people, what kind of skill set they're bringing to the table? I don't want to attack on anybody, but I'm saying those candidates who are not accessible to the people in the middle of the pandemic, I'm wondering what they were doing. And I was in Etobicoke fighting for some of my ACON members who are being evicted in Etobicoke. That was way out of my city, And these are some of the folks that I get to know them because they've supported me during my fight against the landlord. So I showed them my loyalty. I went up to their city and I was there. And the Michael Ford, he was nowhere to be found. And I was there. I mean, we had even TV was there. I believe City News was there, and it was not too far from where he lives, and he didn't show up. And again, that really shows how inaccessible our status quo candidates are, and where they really lying when it comes to people. And it's obvious that we need people, young, fresh-minded, skilled people in the public office who can navigate through these corrupted practices. Because again, I really don't. I mean, I'm new to this space, in the political space, so I don't know much. I have to put that on the table. But I would say I have a lot of experience with my community. I've been directly involved in some of the grassroots movements, and I could say people have the power to change, but it's just that we need to mobilize and we need to organize, and when we come together, things change.
We definitely need the young voters. In Ward 6, I believe, we have the youngest candidate running in the entire race. She's 19 years old. She just graduated high school in June. And I hope she wins. I'll say it. Because, young kids are the future, and she's already engaging in politics. I'm excited for her. I'm excited to see what happens in your ward. I have a few pre-planned topics I'd love to pick your brain about. One thing is crime. I'd love to talk about crime. The crime rate in Toronto has always been a little high. I'm wondering what you think maybe is being done wrong, what needs to happen, and if you have an opinion on the job that the police are doing, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely, I would. That is one of the biggest point in our platform. We say, as a Socialist Alliance, we say we need to defund the police by 50% at least immediately, in order to fund our communities. And we say it boldly, and we say it strongly, and we describe the prescription in our platform, going line by line analysis on how we can accomplish that right now. And I could briefly speak about it, that we have a really wrong approach when it comes to crimes. We still have the mindset we need to criminalize everything in order to solve a problem. That's not how it works. We need to have a system. We need to, let me a little bit further back and say, if the punishment do not fit the crime will not change. The crime rate or crime will continue to evolve. We must have a punishment. The punishment must fit the crime. So when I say that, I wanted to bring an example. If you are making $15 an hour and you're getting a speeding ticket of $120, and at the same time, if you are making, let's say, $3 million a year, and you're getting a speeding ticket of $120, is it the same effect? Do we have the same effect? Absolutely not. For somebody who is making $3 million a year, $120 is nothing. But somebody who makes $15 an hour, that is a huge threat. So we need to have a real system that really punishes the crime equally. And we have this is a very old system that we are working on, and we need to modernize this system. And that, not only that will fund the police itself, it will fund the police itself, but at the same time, that will give more opportunity for our funding. Our public budget to allocate it to other programs. For example, maintaining the schools, and to have more building inspectors, to have proper building inspections done.
can I
Yeah.
just jump in for a second?
Sure.
I don't know if you had something to add, Ebony, but I just wanted to say real quick. This would be an example, going back to what we were saying, of one of the things that see, I understand the whole defund the police thing, but if the so my question would be, by defunding the police, what's the goal? Is the goal to move the funding around, or is the goal to hold the police accountable? Because I don't feel like defunding the police holds the police accountable. The only way to hold them accountable is to attack the language that exists in the contracts of the Toronto Police. So much like how the city workers contracts come up every 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, the Toronto Police contracts come up as well. And if we could, first of all, take out the jobs for life clause that I almost can guarantee exists in that contract, and then replace it with I don't even know what to call it. I usually call it a 3 strikes and you're out, and start firing these police officers so that and without, like, they wouldn't be able to use the union. I'm sure you're familiar with James Versillo, the police officer that shot that kid on the streetcar. Did you know that he was getting paid up until his last appeal? So he's already been convicted and he's sitting in jail or wherever he was. And until his last appeal was heard and denied, he was getting paid by the Toronto Police, even though they'll probably tell you he wasn't, he was. And that is unacceptable. It's disgusting, actually. And if you change the language in the contract, we can start firing these police officers. I have nothing against the police. I actually think they do a great job. If I had to call out one particular division, it would be 22 division. I think that division is a mess, but there are, for the most part, police are I mean, they're good people in my books, but there are bad apples everywhere. And the only way to get these bad apples is to change the language so we can start firing these police officers and make an example of them. And then that holds the police accountable. I'm going to stop talking now, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I think I definitely understand your side of thinking. At one point, I did think like that too, but like I mean, you know, me getting involved with the union and getting into both sides of the coin, I find that it's a bit like, if we just have to zoom out a bit, what it is that the policing is a culture, and the policing is a system that we cannot reform. The reason is they're structured in a certain way to operate with certain conditions. So our society has modernized, but the policing is not modernized. So in order for us to modernize the police, we need to modernize the way that we solve crimes in the community. That's why I was looking at the other example. It's like punishment has to fit the crime. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is again one of the best ways to take forward, because that's not something revolutionary new. It's already been practiced in some parts of the Europe. So it works. So that's why it's one of the key points that we, as a part of the Socialist Alliance platform, that we included that after pretty long debates. So it's problem with policing is a culture. I mean, I understand. Like, I mean, I have a family member who's a cop. He's with the London Police Services. But the individual, it's not the individual that the problem is. It's just that the organization and the culture that need to be changed, and that need to be held accountable. In order for us to do that, we need to strike where it hurts. Where that hurts is the funding. If we strike them with the funding, not only that we can hold them accountable, but we can also use the funding to provide other services that are lacking. one of the ways that we see that we always like, I mean, this is how it works, right? It's like, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you shouldn't be expecting a different result. We cannot just increase the police budget and lower their social programs and defund the social programs and then expect better results. It doesn't work like that. We just have to do the other way around. Defund the police and fund the social programs. Things will be different. The reason we cannot, reason most of the councillors stay on the side of to increase the police budget is because police agency is in a socialist view. I would say that they're masters. They're pretty much tools of their owner class. You cannot change the owner class. I mean, change the tools of the owner class, because owners want. When I say owners, we are pretty all workers. So we are working class. We have the class differences. So we are working class people. We have the same needs. Most of us pretty much have the same needs and same wants and needs. But whereas the owner class, they have different needs. They have different protection. They need different, different things. And their favorite tool is police, because police will protect them under all circumstances. Because for owner class, we are the enemy. Working class people are the enemy. But unfortunately, the police is a working class. They belong to a working class, but we call them traders of working class because they work for the owner class, and they represent the interests of the owner class. And that's exactly what happened. Why it happened when the people in the Lambert Stadium was brutally beaten, and got removed from the parks. That really struck me very hard. That's when I started saying that we must defund the police. And because the police board had an opportunity to say, no, we will not beat people. We will not remove people because we have a pandemic. And police could have done that, but they did not do that. They instead got along with the request of the councillors who wanted to make the tono, pretty. For what? People don't have a place to stay. They wanted to, and what they did was, even the worst thing was, they didn't even provide housing to people. Now the affordable housing is over 10 years wait, and these people, those people who are fighting for better housing accessibility, and they were labeled with all these names you can think of, but they were brutally beaten. They were degraded. And that really hurts, because if you think about it, if they can treat poor people, people who are houseless that way, the next thing is us, working class people. How far are we from? There's more in connection, more in common with working class people and the people on the street than the working class people and the people in the public office. So we must, under all circumstances, working class people must align with the needs of our community, and that's why we need to have people in the public office that has, that's why I would say adequate experience in the community. They have to come from the grassroots. They have to know the people. They have to know, they have to have, the sensitiveness to understand the people and to care for the people. If they don't, we have, they will only end up creating a system that, just degrade humanity. And this is it, that's the system, that kind of system, violence and the violent way of thinking is 200 years ago. That's all done. We live in a time we can think peacefully, we can act peacefully, and every decision we make, have real consequences. And the political violence must stop now. And only way without stopping the political violence, we cannot solve social problems. We cannot address the needs of the people. The really rotten, violent way of solving problem is, to me, is disgusting.
Ebony, I'd love to hear anything you want to add, and you can tag in for the next topic if you like.
Sure. Well, this guy, you've got so many great points, Kiri. In fact, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth where I was going to mention defunding the police, like at least by half, and allocating the money back into the community in terms of like after school programs, how to reduce crime without increasing the amount of officers sitting around double faced in parking lots, as so many people like to mention. And that would be one. A really great place would be after school programs, community drop-in centers, food bank programs, a lot of, maybe apprenticeship programs or something, or, workshops for youth directly looking to go into the workforce, resume building skills, what do you call like health workshop classes so they can get their OSHA certification or their forklift license, little things like that. I think that would keeping those youth off the streets and unarmed would be a great way to start. Another, and I like to mention it only because I used to be a huge, architecture head, is urban planning and like design. So for neighborhoods that are, already slotted for what do you call re-beautification or kind of treatment, more well-lit lighting, and getting more cameras and lighting in those back alleys. So much of Toronto is based on like main streets, and then you got the laneways in the back where we all park cars, and the amount of crime that goes on in those neighborhoods, in those back alleys is, alarming, especially being a female. Walking home after dark is, horrifying. So I think if we put a lot more money into the neighborhoods themselves, that the people who live in those communities might be able to help us bridge the gap in a more friendly manner. I'm a huge advocate for grassroots, like neighborhood watch programs. I myself also, when I lived at Weston, I took it upon, me and a couple of the other tenants, we did a tenant association there just to try and bridge the gap between our conversation and the landlords, because they didn't really want to talk to all of us. So we kind of set up you can't ignore us because we're having a protest type thing. But if you give people the tools, I feel like a lot of the time the community will rise to the occasion and help advocate for itself. The community will tell you what it needs the best, and to put money and reinvest it back in the communities, I think is the way we need to go. Because when we invest that money in the police officers, hoping that they are going to address these same community issues, I feel like they're still coming at it the same hard-handed way they always have. And from a child protection standpoint, taking children and institutionalizing them criminally by putting them in the system at a young age and labeling them that way, pretty much dead assures that they are going to continue a gang-related lifestyle, that they're going to, as soon as you label them that, it kind of damages their chances for graduating, for getting a stable job, for moving out of the hood. And it's unfortunate, a lot of anyone who survives the hood and leaves, they don't stay around for them to be walking down the street and talk to the kids. What was the last candidate we had yesterday who was talking about he wants to see more foot patrol? And I think that's a good way to do it. If we have more police involvement, I'd like to see less cruisers and more foot patrols and bicycle police officers, so that they can be more friendly and get to know the neighborhood on a one-to-one basis. I think you did pretty well there. I'm glad to hear, your thoughts on crime. And I think that leads us right into you did touch, but you went everywhere and I loved it. Touch again on the housing crisis and the unhomed, what do we do with all of them? From a political standpoint, it's a money problem, right? Where are we going to build more affordable housing? We're giving all the land away to condo developers. Do we need any more condos? I don't think we need any more condos.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
We do not have money problem. We have a lot of money. Toronto is one of the richest city.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that mismanaged money is put in the wrong places. That is why we have this crime continuously. The social problems are labeled as crimes, and I see it through a different lens. We have to redefine the problem. The crime is a social problem. It is a collective responsibility of the community. It's not just the police responsibility. It's not just just a law that has to protect the society. No, law is just one tool that protects the society. the community should be self-sustainable. In order for a community to be self-sustainable, you need to have the basic needs met. We have the premise. I don't remember the law. I mean, the basic premises of what is that name? Oh man, it's not coming to my head. The basic necessity. If you have the basic necessity met, so it makes the life of crime unnecessary. Like, who wants to, who wants to pursue a life of crime and to be worried about, cops getting, taking their doors? Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to live like that. I think it's completely, the reason is because we let that kind of system exist, is because we don't want to pay, living wage to the parents. If the parents are not getting paid a living wage, and the kids are not being taken care of, and we tie down the teachers now. I mean, we underfund the school system. That again really hurts, because we are putting the money in the wrong places. And what do we do? We have a lot of money, and we just made the few people rich. And so if you were to look at it, the reason the inequality is rising, there's people getting extremely rich, and there are people getting extremely poor. The inequality is really widening. The reason is the capitalist system. The capitalist system has too much influence in our public office. And right now, if you were to think about it, I'm glad that you pointed out a good point, that actually Aecon did a really good research on finding out how many counselors were interested, had corporate money in their hands. So it is pretty shameful. And, like Matthew mentioned earlier, it should be illegal. It should be a crime, but it's not. They can just, someone can just pretend, oh, you know what, I'm going to fund your campaign, so I'm going to pay you this much money. And they have an unspoken word of agreement, and they operate that way. And that is the problem. That is why we have this problem continue to exist. If you were to put it this way, this is again going a little bit off the topic, but I really want to mention it this way. I really want to bring this point. It's like, if people have money in their hands, what would they do? They would spend it in their local businesses. They would spend it in their communities. They would spend it on themselves, their children. But what's happening when landlords have money? What do? They go invest in offshore, right? They go invest in things, that doesn't, they take the money from the community and they take it elsewhere. But we have a lot of money in Toronto. First of all, we have a lot of money in Toronto. We need to manage the money properly. And number two, we need to keep the money in Toronto. Toronto's money should be spent in Toronto's local businesses. And when we give so much money to when we have $15 minimum wage, and the rent is twice, rent is now what? Almost $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And people are paying paying rent with 2 paychecks to pay rent. And when they do that, they have no money for local businesses. What our local businesses suffer because people don't have money to spend. And I'll also share one more thing about Walmart. When Walmart come to a community, they operate almost 5 years without making any profit. They operate actually in a loss. And what do they do in the process? They eradicate all small businesses. And eventually they become the monopoly and they rule the community. And this is again, it is an open secret. And we need to change the structure, and we need to change the way it's going. Because if we don't have the socialist way of solving problems, we are going to have crime is not going to go down. People are not going to be happy, and people are going to be broke, and people are going to be really unhappy and angry, and we are going to have really we cannot have a harmony in society when we have two different extremes. That's what I'm trying to get at. So that is where we need to see the problem differently. We need to redefine the problem. We need to address in a way that address the masses, the mainstream people, instead of just making money for the shareholders and few corporate heads. And that culture need to end. And I will also add on one more point on this. I'm not sure if you're running a lot of time, but I mean, you guys got me excited. Elections come and go, but the status quo remains. We have in the municipal elections, we only have less than 1/3 of the people actually go out and vote. Why that is? It's not people don't want to vote. People have interest in vote. I mean, they want to vote, but they just given up because nothing works. Our electoral system is hijacked by capitalist class. When I say capitalist class, the corporate interested the big corporations, and they have full control over our public office. So how can we have these public servants actually balance the inequalities when they have so much interest in the corporate world?
Well, there's a couple of there's a couple of issues. First of all, we're following the provincial election, and I think that people still have PTSD from the provincial elections. So there's that. And the second thing is, you're right. People, they give up but what they don't understand is their vote still counts. I know they're being told, yeah, it's my vote. It's just one vote. It doesn't count, but it does count. And, I use this example. A vote for John Tory is a vote for John Tory, but a person who does not vote is also a vote for John Tory. And if the whole point of this municipal election is to get a new mayor whose name is not John Tory, then everybody has to vote. I just want to remind my listeners, because I didn't say it at the top of the episode, guys, voting day is October 24th. And early voting opens October 7th to the 14th. Get out and vote. I'm a firm believer that the only way to affect change is to be part of it. We want you guys to be part of it. Status quo is not working. We know it. Ebony knows it. Kiri knows it. So let's get out and let's vote and let's affect change. Kiri, I want to I'm blown away. I want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. I'm blown away. Like, I'm gonna have to go back and rethink some things. Like, it's amazing the way that because it's not a secret. There are parts about the Socialist Alliance that I don't agree with. However, the way that you've worded it and stuff like that, maybe it wasn't explained to me right the first time. So I'm gonna go back and think about some things. And I know you said your website wasn't up yet, but tell us about your website, when it's going to be available, so people can look at it, and anything else you want to add.
Oh yes, currently we have Socialist Alliance website. We have about 10 candidates who are pretty much socialist candidates who are running on the municipal socialist platform. So we have a dedicated website for all the candidates. That is socialistalliance.ca. So they in the socialistalliance.ca that we have the program, the platform, individual biography. We have all the information available for public. We also have candidates have their own website. So I'm working on my own website, which I should be able to publish it in about 2 days to maximum 3 days. Should be able to have more in-depth information about my platform. But the mainstream, our socialist platform is already up, and it is. You would be surprised the way that it was put together. If you look at few words, you'll be like, no, it doesn't work. But then if you start reading it, it will make sense. And that's where we stand, right? We socialists, we stand on bold, strong policy to effect change. We run on a principle. We don't, we are not we are not the candidates who will say anything to get votes. No, we have a strong principle that we stand on, we strive for, and we are going to effect change. And we know the change is coming, but it's just that we don't know when. So the change is already in the air. So I am really passionate about my community, and especially looking at my community. It's majority of people are working class, Filipinos, Tamils, Chinese community, Black community, and our community needs proper representation. We have more than 50% of the people in my ward are renters. pretty much it's roughly about the same average, in other parts of the city in Toronto. But, there's no representation in the city council. So that would be a real change, and that would be a real representation for tenants. So that's why one of the reason I'm in this, and I'm really putting myself forward to represent the people on the renter side. And not only that, I know I really talked about the landlords, but we also have to look at it this way. Majority of the people who actually end up voting are landlords. We have landlords who actually do the majority of the votes, and there's a saying that renters don't vote, but it's not true. People that have just given up, but landlords, they have to. What we need to understand is, our platform is not anti-landlords. It is also landlord friendly. If you were to think about it, we are putting for a sustainable future, sustainable system that would actually work. That would actually work for everybody. So if we have less crime in society, it's good for everybody. If we have good social programs, it's good for everybody. So the programs that we are putting forward is not just not all of them are anti-landlords. That's again false thinking. But our programs are for everybody who is going to benefit from it.
Well, I can't wait to see your website when it's finally up. Ebony, do you have anything to add before we get off here?
I was wondering, maybe you could shoot me a tweet, like give me a quick synopsis, 140 characters or less. On your opinion, do you think that the city councilors are currently getting too many perks, like free teacher pass, zoo pass, housing allowance, parking permit?
Absolutely, and I think that needs to be. We need to ask if those perks are not available for people who go to Tim Hortons every day morning and make coffee. Why those are available to those people in the city council? And it's not fair. It's not right. And indeed, those perks should be for the Tim Hortons workers. And every day, those councillors who drive by Tim Hortons and and get their tea or coffee in the morning, they look at the Tim Hortons worker and they're saying, indirectly, they're saying, "Oh, you know what? I don't care about you. I only care about myself." It's really, we need to look the other way around. We need to rise the bottom up. We cannot just have inequality rising and our society be in bleeding all the time. So
I love that answer.
Perfect.
Thank you again for coming on and doing this interview. Election night's always special for me. I get to sit in front of the TV and I love watching election results. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'll be doing it remotely this year because I'll be in North Carolina. So to my listeners, again, voting day is October 24th. Early voting opens October 7th to the 14th. Get out and vote.
If you don't vote, you can't complain later. I don't want to hear you bitching.
That's right. I want to wish you so much luck on your campaign trail. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens next for this city and also for Ward 21.
Thank you, Matthew. And did I get your name right? Ebony?
Yep, that's it.
Evan.
Okay. Ebony, okay. It's it's a pleasure to meet both of you, and thank you. And both of you guys got me talking, and it's just that I hope I really brought more information and shed more lights into the issues the Barber community is suffering. And it's all about building our community together forward, and we cannot just go back to old way of doing things. It's just that if the horse is not walking, we cannot just beat the horse to make the horse walk. We just have to do things reverse. We need to feed the horse, right? We need to give milk, or maybe we need to give water.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So again, thanks again. It's a pleasure. Have a good night, guys.